JoyScore.co, JoyScore.co. Yes, the app that you can go to and save your soul, people. Hey, we have a great show tonight, and we have the lovely Suzanne Toro here with us to bring us all sorts of wisdom through her shaman experience. And we have three wonderful guests. We have Armando, Rachel, and Jennie here to. Armando's an Olympic sprinter, and he's going to share an extraordinary technique that he's been utilizing to not only help himself, but to help his own family. And we have some nonviolent communicators, and we know how important that is these days. We want to treat each other with more respect. We want to know how to go about treating each other with a little bit more compassion. And Rachel and Jennie are going to give us some tips on how to do that. And I'm going to throw this over to Suzanne to give us more explicit insight into our guests.
All right. Thank you, Thomas. So we are going to explore joy through both of their works tonight. And in addition, they're going to Armando's going to share his athletic background, how you can explore freedom in your physical body and how that can translate from your mind to your spirit and your emotional
He seems like an
being.
extraordinary guy. Like, how did you come across Armando? Where'd you meet him?
I met him through his wife, Eve Hart, who's an extraordinary human being also, drumming. And they
At
both...
a drum circle? Where were you?
Here in Long Beach.
Oh, yeah. Where's the drum circle here in Long Beach?
It doesn't exist anymore right now,
but drum circle. We need more drum circles in the world. Make this a better place.
So drumming is where I met Armando and his wife Eve, and his capabilities of coaching and training world-class athletes.
Misty May, doesn't Misty May one of his?
Also one of his athletes.
How much better does it get than that? Than Misty May. Misty May is the queen of all athletics.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
He's going to jump in and share all his wisdom with us. And then we're going to transition to Rachel and Jennie, who both are in wellness industry, Jennie. And then Rachel is a comedian. They've teamed up and they teach nonviolent communication. They're both active meditators, very mindful with how they move through life in general and encourage people how to communicate a little differently so it's not so offensive. So a really helpful tool, especially right now with Twitter and social media, how it goes. We all can probably benefit from communicating.
I love the red. I love the red dress.
Well, I'm glad you like the red dress.
Very nice on you. Very extremely nice on you. So can you tell us a little bit about you and give us a more insight into your lovely background and some of the things that you have going on?
Well, I help people through birth, life, and that word that you don't really appreciate, so I'll bleep it out. It's the DEATH word, the death word. I help people with different modalities to bring them into their harmony, a state of being through Ayurvedic and Chinese principles. In addition, I
bring people into the world and you bring them out of the world.
Yeah, in and out. It's all the same to me.
Oh my goodness.
All the same to me.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I have a radio program that I help shine a light on people's great ideas.
What's the name of your radio program?
Be Simply.
Be Simply. How can we find you? BeSimply.com?
You can just put in Be Simply. I'm on iTunes, on Blog Talk Radio. I'm also on SoundCloud. And my website, SuzanneToro.com.
Who was your latest guest on that show?
Oh, my latest guest, I haven't edited. The one that's up is a beautiful man that Alexander Woodard, and he is a musician, and he talks about giving up your dreams so that you can finally come into alignment with what your destiny is in this lifetime. And he's a country western singer, but really ended up writing songs for people that had lost people.
Well, good. Maybe you can bring some music to JoyScore next week when we do this show.
That sounds fantastic.
Awesome.
And how are you tonight? How joyful are you?
Hey, you know what? I feel really privileged to be here, and this is an awesome program, a way in which potentially, if you're not feeling so good, you can tune into us and listen to some good supportive talk and learn some techniques on how to pull yourself out of a dark place if you happen to be in a dark place, but and also just to be enlightened in the healing arts. Even though Armando's a sprinter, he brings with him an extraordinary background of healing arts, and he's going to share some of that with us. And you have Jennie and Rachel, and they're bringing this nonviolent communication aspect to it, which must be a really, really tricky thing these days, and certainly a technique I can't wait to get into more with them.
And also, I think it's really good to point out the fundamental principles that JoyScore offers. So when people engage in the app and how they might utilize JoyScore to, one, give them a barometer of where they're at, an honest barometer.
JoyScore is interesting. They're taking science and study and putting it into an app to help people. JoyScore.co. Go there, check it out. And then they're also bringing just the more practical application of what it is to simply be joyful and happy and understand how to celebrate our existence here on this planet. We're only here for a short amount of time. We come in and we go out. And we certainly want to utilize techniques on how to realize our potential here on planet Earth and get the most out of it. Yeah, wouldn't you say that, Suzanne?
Absolutely. And I have a question for you. What brings you joy?
You know what? I try to count my blessings every day. And so when I realize that I have the opportunities that I have, it keeps things in perspective for me. It keeps me in perspective. And the practical application is working out, getting out, breathing in the air, taking a look at the sunshine. We're in sunny Southern California, so we get a lot of sunshine. We got a lot of beach. We've got no excuses to really be sad here, actually, honestly. And to just be happy to have a roof overhead, eat good food, have some good friends, and check in. Mm-hmm. Check in and also take stock in just being in a body and at this time and in this space, and just being happy. I've said this, I repeated it, but to realize your potential here in this time and space is really important. There's a really famous guy, Ferdinand Porsche. I don't know if you guys drive Porsches, but he said some extraordinary things. One of the things is time cannot be influenced by mankind. It gives each of us a beginning and an end. And this makes us question the significance of what comes in between. But if we can create something truly timeless, something which ignores the eccentricities of a particular time and era, that would be the ultimate victory. I think within what that awesome, cool man said was, find something that you want to grab onto, find something that you want to pursue, find something that fills you up, find something that engages you that you can share and be in service to your community with. And he just happened to come up with an awesome car, and he clearly loves to share that with his community for sure.
Beautiful.
How about you? What brings you joy?
Oh, food. Food, people, enjoying people, good conversation, nature.
That's
just
right.
Being
You're
outdoors.
a foodie. Don't you have a whole foodie business too?
I do. I
Food
teach
makes you
people
happy.
about food,
Makes
alchemy.
me happy. Makes me really happy.
Yeah, I think it's a very wonderful place for people to connect and commune. So really, with JoyScore encouraging people to be in well-being and come out into the world behind our computers, behind Facebook, and come out and have real conversations with one another.
Nothing better than breaking bread together,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, it's a really beautiful opportunity, I think, and I think it would be wonderful if we did more of that. I noticed when out and about in the town, a lot of people are solo at the bar or at the restaurant. They're craving human connection. But they at least are out there trying to get some, maybe a quick conversation.
Even going down here and 2nd Street in Long Beach, all the restaurants and people communing. It seems like a seriously ancient tradition by which we as human beings certainly took that time to break bread and had gratitude and get to know each other and understand each other's day, understand the hunt and what we've been doing and how to re-engage and how to touch base. Food is like ultimate. Maybe we can bring some food in next week.
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe we can do it like an episode on food.
I made a pineapple upside down cake today.
Oh my God. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
Well, I think it would be great if we dove in with Armando. How do you feel about that?
I can't wait to see what Armando brings to the table. Extraordinary being.
We have a short clip from his book, The Heart Method. We could dive in there if that works out
let's
for
roll,
you.
Hey, Jacob, let's roll the videotape on Armando's Heart Method.
And then we'll
His
welcome him in.
Let me know when we got it going. Armando's got some extraordinary things. He's shared like underground racing and underground like.
Well, and the amazing part right now is bringing the mind. We've had a yogic explosion across the world where people are really wanting to explore meditation, asana, breath work. And then you have this whole other arena of people that are going for martial arts and kickboxing and MMA and now bringing athletics to yoga and yoga to athletics.
Don't you teach yoga too? Aren't you like that? Aren't you that girl too? This woman does everything. She cook, the yoga.
Just enjoy living life.
You got that video ready to go? Oh, it's rolling.
All right, here we go.
Rolling.
Let's check it out.
Armando.
Not sure if we're getting sound, but we could use this as the silent era. You can.
Do we have sound on that, Jacob?
No, it's okay. Well, this
Oh,
is
good.
Armando. We can, I actually, interesting enough, on international planes, love watching other people's movies silently. I like watching movies without knowing.
He's a handsome guy, isn't he?
Yeah, so since we have this beautiful backdrop, why don't we bring Armando in? He's, I think,
There he is racing.
Stage
Is
right.
that Carl
Come
freaking
on
Lewis?
in.
All right.
You can sit up
Come
and
on in, Armando. We don't see
Welcome.
Armando. Yeah, but we're watching him up on the videotape.
we're watching the silent movie of the
Oh,
Hart
wow.
Method.
Maybe you can give a narration.
I love the silent movies too.
Yeah,
I
you
love
can have
it.
your own imagination.
There's that guy.
There's that guy.
Give us a narration. Yeah, there you are.
You're just taking me back.
God, you're huge.
Wow.
What are you talking
I
about?
actually
here?
love that space. I love that.
What space? Where are you?
That was in downtown Long Beach.
Oh, that's up above the old Z Gallery, right?
It's above.
Or
No,
but it's
it
close
was
to
close
there.
to it.
Yeah,
it
it's
has the
those great
same.
lofts.
It has the same look and feel. It's actually called Howl.
How? Okay.
HOWL.
Where are you here? Where's that shot? Up on the hill.
Oh, the hill. That was probably Culver City. It looked like. Yeah.
How about this race?
This was actually Cal State Long Beach, and it
Look
wasn't
at
a
the
race.
muscles.
It was for a newspaper write-up for the Press Telegram.
Oh, cool.
Back when people read it.
Yeah, well, not many people
Yeah.
are reading the paper these days.
I think it's very thin now. Good old-fashioned paper
Wow.
newsprint is good.
So Armando was an Olympian. So here he is, like getting himself in shape.
Close to being an Olympian.
Oh, close. Okay,
which
gotcha.
Which is part of my story.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
So
right.
why
That was
don't
a
you
bit of an
dive
injury.
in there and tell us about that, Armando?
You
about
can
your-
cut to us now,
Let's part to the live.
or you
Wow.
can split screen with him too.
Yeah. I mean, I just watching that just takes me back. Takes me back to that time. Takes me back to that warrior that I was. Not that I'm not a warrior now. I can still be a warrior.
You're a
but,
peaceful warrior.
But yeah, like a spiritual, peaceful warrior. I
That's
guess.
cool.
And I think that's what life is about, right? It's just to be able to incorporate that spirituality and that divinity and essence back into the body, and being mindful about it and being able to share that and express that in a way that it can inspire others to do the same.
Was that always part of your process, or where was the awakening? Where was the alignment? Where was the magic moment?
Growing up, I always had questions, and I was a very quiet person. I was a very quiet boy because I didn't feel that I was in an environment that could answer my questions. I wanted to know about why are we here? What are we doing? Why are we in a body? What is this? What are we
Did you
supposed to
figure
do?
it out? Did you figure it out?
You know,
Tell me.
you know what? That's why I'm on the show. Why are we in this body? What are we doing? I still have the same questions,
Yeah.
but now I can ask it.
You didn't answer it. Oh, you can ask it. You can only ask it now.
But yeah, no, I had those questions growing up, and at the same time, I wanted to pursue the limits of my body. As a 10-year-old boy, I watched the Olympics in LA, and in that moment, I knew that I one day wanted to be an Olympian, and
Wow.
and hopefully one day be on the track to win a gold medal. That goal was in me since I was a 10-year-old boy. During that time, my father took me to his hometown in Michoacan. It's called Langostura, and it's a small little town, and everyone was celebrating and talking about a race, which I thought it was a horse race. I didn't think it was going to be two people actually running a race. So there is this local guy who happened to be my uncle. I'm related to this guy, which
Right.
I didn't know at the time. Well, everyone's related, I guess, in
Yeah.
that town somehow or another.
You're all
And,
family.
Yeah, and he was racing this out-of-towner who came to race against him. So the people of the town supported, obviously, the local guy, They bet cows. They bet their land. They bet. It was a huge deal. And I'm sitting on my father's shoulders watching this race. And in that moment, I knew that I was going to be that. I knew that I was going to grow up doing that. And I did. They brought that culture back to LA, back to Long Beach. There's this place in Long Beach which us Mexicans know as El Hoyo, which means the hole. And that's where I started running these races as a 10, 11-year-old boy. And I ran these until I was 28 years old. And at the same time, I had this other dream of being an Olympian, which to me was another world, was an expansive world. It was not the world that I grew up in. It was two different worlds that I was living in.
Yeah.
Because I ran at Cal State Long Beach. I had these two different
Did you dominate?
lives.
Did you dominate over at Cal State?
I actually broke the school record my second race. That's
cool. How old were you when you broke
I
that record?
was 19.
Ah,
Yeah.
19.
And I broke the school record my second race, and I went on to had a form of success. I felt that I could have still ran faster, but I had that force mentality. I had that, I was very motivated, very disciplined, and I forced my body for results.
Right.
And I had qualified for the Olympics in 1996 for Mexico. So I had the opportunity to actually run for my parents' country and,
Wow,
and
that's wonderful.
represent that. And 7 weeks before, I tore my hamstring.
Oh no.
And
So we know what happens when that happens. So you're done.
well, it definitely felt like I was done, because I felt that 10-year-old boy who had that dream of being an Olympian and having it right there.
I see the
It was right
emotion
there.
coming up in you. I see the
It
tears.
was right there. I had it, and for it to be just taken away.
How do you
just like
define
that.
it now?
But you did it.
The
You
goal.
did it, Armando.
Yeah, but this it. Yeah, but
got it.
you're holding on to this. You're holding
You
on to
got
this.
it.
You went it.
Yeah.
So how do you define that now in your from in hindsight?
You know what, Suzanne, you're 100% correct. I did do it.
Yeah.
And not only did I do it, but I did it even better.
Absolutely.
Because that tragedy, that challenging time, that dark time was the seed. That was the seed of what I'm doing now. Because this training method came from that. This philosophy came from that. This wisdom came from that. That is called the Hart method.
The Hart
and
method.
is made up of 8 maxims, which are ground, gravity, integrity, joy, harmony, freedom, now, and action. And I feel that they are our essence. And I'll tell you a little story. So after this injury, it took me some time to recover emotionally. So I decided to move to Houston, Texas, to train with the best sprinters at the time, which were Carl Lewis, Leroy Burrell, and I wanted to train with them. I wanted to be in that environment, and I wanted to train with their coach. And their coach pulls me aside and says, "You have great potential, but you have to just put your foot down." Which for me I was doing the opposite my whole career. I was trying to drive forward. I was trying to drive my knees up. I was trying to force my body to go from A to B as fast as I could. I never heard that. Put the foot down. What does that mean? Right? At the same time, I wanted to be a better person. I still was that little boy who had questions, and I wanted to be a better person. I was reading this book, and I forgot the title of the book, but it said The Power of Putting Your Foot Down in Life. Claiming yourself. Living an authentic life. Speaking your truth. So I made this connection between putting the foot down with the physical body and putting the foot down in life. And I'll give you a little visual. When we bounce the ball bounces up. Why?
Because of the force going down.
The force going down.
Right.
Right. That's the authentic force. That's why the up happens, because it's going down.
Your
right?
cause and effect. Your
the
little
cause and
elasticity,
effect.
right.
It's very simple. And he told me, look at that boy running. He's putting his foot down. It was 11-year-old boy. So what does that say? That we have this essence of putting the foot down. As children, we have this essence. We naturally do that. That boy wasn't coached. He said,
Right,
I'm not
right.
coaching him. He's just
putting
doing
her
it.
foot down.
So
You raced, didn't you?
I did, and
You were-
swimming
she
and
was
running,
fast.
and you've actually coached me some.
yeah,
Did
Yeah.
you I ran the
That's very
220
helpful.
pole vault.
yeah.
I guess
If
you
you
were
say
pole
if you
vaulting.
I ran a quarter.
220 yard, right?
Yeah,
And
200,
the
200, 400.
and the 440 yard. Yeah.
Yeah, and triathlon.
Yeah.
I can. So when you're talking, I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, it's to me that was a very powerful thing because I was able to, that was the start of something bigger, something greater for me. Because if children have this essence to put their foot down, that means is about preserving that essence,
beautiful.
right?
So let's move on. Cause we only have you for a little bit. I could have you for an hour. I could have 3 hours.
I
listening to
think
this.
I could be here all day.
But
Yeah.
but you have so we have a JoyScore audience. We have
Yeah.
a group of people they're interested in improving themselves and
Yeah.
and figuring out how to be lighter and quicker on their feet and not to use your
Yeah.
whatever that analogy means.
Yeah.
But like you're 8, you have those principles. So
Yeah.
you have an audience watching you and they don't know anything about what you're talking about. If you have somebody that
Well, one of
let's
his
say-
principles
let's
is
say-
joy.
but let's
Yeah.
but let's
Yeah.
like if you don't have somebody that's happy,
Right.
how are you gonna teach us right now? You got 4 minutes to teach us your technique to somebody who's not happy right now.
We all have the potential of not being happy, right?
Uh-huh.
And we all have that opportunity to be happy. And what I do that's powerful for me and what I would advise anyone to do
Teach me. I'm miserable. I'm miserable right now. Talk to me.
Okay, so when you get up tomorrow morning, okay, you have a choice. You have a choice to be in your essence, or you have a choice to be in your mind or ego. Either of those two.
What's essence?
Essence is about having the ability to not react. You respond. You respond instead of react. You're more in your body. So, for example, how do I get in my essence? Is I put the alarm on earlier than what I'm supposed to get up. Okay, so I put it on early. If I'm supposed to be up at 6 because I have to be at work at 7, I put it on at 4:30.
Ah.
Right. So when the alarm goes off at 4:30, the night before I tell myself, when that alarm goes off, I'm going to try my best to not hear it or to turn it off or to press snooze, right?
So you want me to set my alarm at 4:30?
If you need to be somewhere at 7, right?
So I'm going to set I need to be at the gym at 7. So I'm going to set my alarm
7.
at 4:30.
Okay, so how far are you from the gym?
A mile.
A mile. Let's say 5:30.
Okay.
Okay, 5:30. You set the alarm at 5:30,
Uh-huh.
and as soon as the alarm goes off, you get up. Okay, you get up, and I want you to give yourself. You have a win column and an L column. The W is for win, and the L is for lose. So when you get up at the exact time the alarm goes off, I want you to just put a little dot or a little mark on
Nice.
win.
Oh my God, I'd be such a loser.
You're 1-0, right? Right? And then the next thing is to walk over to the bathroom and do your thing, whatever it is. If you shave, and I mean, it looks like you
I tried.
you do hear, but you don't hear, but it works for you.
It was a beard done.
So, for me is
So I go, well, I'm going to do that. Then what's my next step?
and then you go to the bathroom, you do your thing, you put cold water in or you take a shower. Let's say by the time you come out of the bathroom, you're 4 or 5-0. So guess what? You have a winning attitude. You have a winning start to your day.
You got a win streak.
You're in a win streak, right?
Dang.
You're not starting your day 0-4, 0-5. So what does that do? When you start your day 0-4, 0-5, let's say a team starts their season like that, they're most likely to react, right? They're most likely to be like, whoa, what's going on here? What's going on?
Yeah.
You know, so they're most likely to be out of the
Start
bodies.
getting hard on themselves.
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
something
So
like that.
they're most likely to make a mistake because they're reacting to an 0-5, 0-6 record. So you not saying that can come back later on, but I'm saying it's if you start your day with the winning attitude, a winning mindset, that's essence, because you're more centered.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
that leads to.
So you're saying the winning part of a human being is the essence. In other words, the good part of them. Is that what you're sort of directing?
Yeah, it's that part of you that keeps you centered.
Is that you see that, Suzanne?
Yeah, well, your eternal being, maybe I would call it, like that's that eternal being that always is championing for your highest and best. So that being saying, hey, get out of bed, brush your teeth, do what's good for you, take the extra time before you go to work so you have a good attitude.
All right, so I'm going to do that. So I got my essence, I'm going to put my win-loss thing up there. Now what do I do?
All right, so now you have a winning attitude. I'm not saying you're not going to take a loss, because there's days and there's times when you're supposed to do something, you don't do it. That's fine. But you started your day centered.
I hate losing too, so this would be a motivator.
This is perfect.
Well, and share a little bit about react versus responding. All right, I don't know if I'm using the exact words, but where you're reacting to someone versus responding, and the same as it applies to athletics.
Right. So one of the things that I do is I get into my body right after I go to the bathroom. I do like physical movements, physical practice that gets me in my body, which is very powerful, because when I do that, and there's a difference between responding and reacting to situations, because if I get up and I ignore my alarm clock, and I get up later because I wanted a little bit more sleep, then I'm not in my body. I'm more in my head.
Absolutely.
And we are physical beings. We have a physical body. And to connect to that body first thing in the morning is very powerful, because you feel a deeper sense of integrity, and not integrity in a way that about doing what you said you would do, but integrity as feeling whole and complete.
Whole and complete.
Yeah.
So is that my next step? So after I get up at 5:30, then I'm supposed to go through that, and then I should feel more whole and complete.
You give yourself a better shot to feeling that, and to, like we started, talking about happiness and folks that are not happy. That's opening up the doorway to the possibility of being happy, and it's a day-to-day thing. It's a moment-to-moment thing, because we all fall off.
So this is a nice transition, because I only have you for a few minutes. I understand that your wife has cancer.
Yeah. Yep.
And so how are you bringing your technique into your lives to help alleviate your situation?
It's probably one of the hardest things that I have ever gone through, and I have gone through tragedy, but nothing compared to this. And there's this feeling that you can connect to when you go through something that dark, and it's gratitude.
Wow.
And it's not easy to do, but why gratitude is so important when you go through something like that, it's because
gratitude for the person,
gratitude for the experience. Because you know that if this came to you, that there's a gift in that. There's a gift in that experience.
Explain that.
And I say gift in that experience because if you are able to harness that experience and understand why it's happening, what you can do with it, not just for your own well-being, but also for the well-being of others, be able to share your story and express your story. My experience is different than my wife's experience because she's actually in it. She's feeling it.
She's the sprinter in this
she's and I'm observing it, and I'm there. So my experience is different than hers, but we're connected. So I feel certain emotions. There was a time where I didn't feel motivated.
So in your steps, how are you actively, proactively engaging in this technique to keep yourself?
One of my maxims and principles is the power of now. Now, and
as in Eckhart Tolle, or
yeah, the book of Eckhart Tolle is called The Power of Now, but my principle is just now. NOW. And we sit down with oncologists that come from a conventional mindset, and they tell you certain things that it's easy to react to and easy to be fearful, to do what they think you should do because your wife's life is in danger. You have to not react to that, because the human body there's a genius to the human body, and and I could say that women have this intuition
or instinctual drive to survive.
They're I feel like their intuition, not that men don't have intuition, of course, very intuitive, but women have this other sense of intuition, and just watching her go through that process, an oncologist is telling her, you should do this, you should do that, or else you're not going to live to, whatever they say.
Suzanne, do you have any input on this?
And just to watch her through that process and how she takes that, it's incredible. And when I talked about the principle of now, is to be able to stay present in the now, and to be here, no matter what you were told, is not to react to that, and just to remain present is very powerful.
And because inevitably when you're in cancer, you go into fight or flight. You're in that mentality like, okay, I got to do something, but you're absolutely right. That present moment awareness allows you to assess the situation and what is available to help self in this moment. And Mother Nature teaches us that. It's like, just go under the shrub and hang out for a while, and so much happens. But, I appreciate, because you guys have been, from my observation, dancing between modalities. And so, but there is so much to access in that moment.
So tell me how this power of now, we're talking about presence. We're talking about finding our way back into harmony with our surroundings, including the people and the animals and the trees and the air and all of that. What is the experience of that for those of us that are in our heads? Probably most of us, but being in our heads is certainly the neurosis that makes us sad. So this power of now is just more than you being attuned to the intuitive needs of your wife.
Right.
It seems to be the guiding light by which.
Yeah, the power now is very important, and I do try to live with that moment to moment.
How do you evoke it if you feel like you're in your head? What are the some techniques?
So I'll give you another example that I did in the office with the oncologist. I felt that when I walked into this appointment with my wife, the oncologist failed to make eye contact with me. She was talking to her, mainly to her, and the appointment before, we had seen her the week before, and she just rushed out of the office. Told her, she needs to do chemo, she needs to do this, all this and that, and she just rushed out. So there was no compassion, there was no empathy, there was no connection. So I just said, you know what, I have to put my foot down.
There you go.
Right. So I in that moment, the second time we were sitting in the office with her and she wasn't making any eye contact with me, I brought that up. I said, I told her exactly what I felt. I spoke my truth. I felt I needed to do that, not just for me, for my own sake.
How did that conversation go?
Not very good. Not very good. I actually got the banned by my own wife.
You were so
but you bring up a good point.
You were so strong in his face. When the wife was like,
she said, you know what, you're on probation. You're on probation.
But Armando, you bring up a good point, because, when in that situation, because I work with a lot of patients that are, at different stages of cancer, and a lot of the doctors and oncologists and therapists are in that environment all day long. So they're kind of stuck into this world and reality. So it is important to put your foot down and help bring them back to the present moment of, hey, you're dealing with a human life here.
Right.
And to bring everyone, if you were to transition someone from a fear-based outlook, how would you bring them into joy in that moment?
In that moment?
Yeah. Because I've experienced it and witnessed it, many times, different scenarios. But
in that moment, I actually failed. I failed to bring
How would you do it now?
to bring joy back in that moment, because when I spoke I put my foot down. I did it in a way that I felt like I needed to do it, like I was telling Thomas, for my own sake, but also for all the other people that are be sitting in that office.
Absolutely. So that was beautiful action.
Yeah. So
you were her teacher in that moment. So how do you talk to a doctor? Like, what was someone? I mean, you put your foot down. Like, I want to hear a couple of sentences. How do you talk to a doctor that's ignoring you? That's important because they're always ignoring us.
You know what? I told her what I felt was not compassionate when she told us, "Oh, honey, you need to do this. You need to do chemo, and we need to do now." And she just left, and I was looking at my wife like, "Where did she go?" And just to hear that news, just like so sudden, I go, "You know what? I'm gonna bring that up next time." And when I told her, I said, "I want to bring something up with you that didn't feel really comfortable, and it's been in my head. I just want to express it." So I mentioned that, and when I did mention that, she still continued to ignore me in a way, because she's like, "Well, this is her body," and not that I don't know that. I'm her husband.
It's your body.
Yes, it is her body, and it's ultimately her decision. But don't tell me, "Oh, you're not valid." That's how it felt.
Right.
Wow.
You're not valid. And
so the dialogue went.
Yeah, so that's how it went.
He's
and
not gonna give you the juicy
I could feel my wife's energy looking at me. It was like, "Stop it," because I kept going.
Keep going. I want to hear.
So, and your question about how
could you bring joy?
How could I bring joy, which is a great thing for me to think about, because, I mean, I could have maybe made a joke. I could have probably made something, just very, to lighten it up a little bit, which I failed to do. But the possibility of that is there, because, that's a natural thing to experience, is the experience of joy in that moment.
Absolutely. I had a doctor come in with one of my patients that was on a hospice, but we were laughing. She and I were belly laughing in the bed together, and he's like, "What are you doing? Why are you laughing? Don't you know?" And I go, "What's your problem?" I go, "You look really good with a smile." I go, "Do you really want her to remember you like this?"
Yeah.
So, I mean, finding those moments to get them to relax, because they don't know how to handle it either. They're just as uncomfortable. But.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt that. There was some tension there.
So this is JoyScore.co. JoyScore. So you have this whole principle of joy. So can you kind of touch on that?
So joy is in essence that we already carry in our bodies as growing up. When we were children, we loved to move our bodies. What did we do after we ate?
Our parents told us to sit for 20 minutes because you're not allowed to go out and run around.
But that's what we wanted to do, right? After, and I see it in my son. He eats and he just wants to move around. And when I see him move, he laughs. It's joyful, So that's a natural part of who we are. And it's present. And I learned that essence through running. When you put your foot down, when that leg is driving down, the opposite leg comes up. It actually the one of the results is the bouncing of the body.
Beautiful.
So that in itself is our essence. So if you run and you are bouncy, you're feeling joyful. And I'm telling you, if people run like that, they know that
you're a marathon, Suzanne.
You know that,
yeah,
right?
Well,
tell me about that. How do you correlate?
I would say skip everywhere.
Skip too. Skipping. You know what?
And it
Skipping.
makes other people happy when they see grown adults skipping. So
I've actually wanted to start a movement on skipping.
Yeah, just start skipping everywhere.
Because skipping is very powerful, and you bounce, and that it promotes joy, and it's playful.
Well, there's so many studies between the mind body, with especially running, cardio exercise, that brings you into a much better state of being. Psychologically, most psychotherapists and psychiatrists really recommend physical exercise, running, anything that gets those endorphins going. It clears out the cobwebs out of the
body. It's beautiful. I mean,
but you're dealing with a body that needs to be centered before it goes into these activities. I'm an Ironman triathlete. I spent my time on the ice rink, and I've enjoyed those times. But then when my body was a little out of whack, I didn't quite understand it. I did not enjoy those times because the body was not in alignment. I would imagine with these world-class athletes that you work with, you're probably paying close attention to alignment.
Well, I emphasize the importance of listening to your body. and to, when you develop a strong, solid connection and relationship with your body, you are able to listen and understand. We all hear a whisper when it says something's wrong with your calf.
Yeah.
Chill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We all hear that. We all hear that, but we don't want to hear it. We ignore it. Oh, I can do it. No big deal. I can go out there. Then it says, dude, chill. There's something wrong with your calf. Listen, And then when that you don't want it to scream, because when it screams, that's when you tear your calf.
Gotcha. So when you're working with like a person like Misty May, what's her deal? She seems like she's perfect. I mean, what are the problems of a world class athlete?
Misty.
Misty. Like, what are some of her challenges? Somebody on that level at least.
We're all different, and we're all made up different, and we all have different challenges. Misty is one of those athletes that you don't see come around very often. She has probably one of the strongest mindsets that I've ever known.
How do you define mindset?
Just her her ability to just trust. Trust is huge, because
that's huge.
There's this aura that she has about her that, and you could see it if you watched her play before, even if they're down. You could sense her sense of trust that it's all going to be good. So, and I learn from my athletes. I learn that ability to trust. And one of those things that I learned from Misty is to have this trust and trust.
I think he wants you to move away from it.
Okay, he wants you to move away from it. Sorry, we're live, so we have to make text.
But that's an enormous concept. And trust in what? And so this is really the thing that defines trust. I mean, we usually put it on other people, but in this case, how are you using the word trust? Like, where is the trust?
Right now, I bring in the sense of that ability to trust in my life right now.
But with her, and then we'll pull it back to you. But
you mean
Misty? Like you said, her implicit ability to trust.
Right.
Like, what is she trusting in? What is that?
Well,
where's her relationship?
Back when I started working with her, she was coming off an Achilles tear. So she didn't know. She wasn't quite sure if she was going to come back and go for a third gold medal. But you could feel that no matter what, she trusted the process. She trusted her process. She trusted her body.
So what does that allow a person to do? So she trusts her process. She trusts her body. So where does that put them if they're able to do that?
It allows you to come back the next day. It allowed her to come back the next day and train.
How about within that moment itself? How about within the matches where she's trusting herself? What is that allowing her to do relative to somebody who's not trusting themselves as much?
It allows her not to react. And now we're going back to essence.
Well, what I'm trying to zoom in is on there has to be a greater sense of freedom within the moment if that athlete.
It opens up her ability to see what others don't see.
So
freedom in that moment, right?
Freedom in that moment.
Without that obfuscation of distrust,
right?
She has a higher sense of
because when you lose trust, then you close your perception, you close your vision. You don't see things that are there. You start to be more in your head. So it opens her up to see things how they are, and it's almost like she slows time down because she's so clear.
So she has that. That's what makes her a champion.
She has
that.
Absolutely.
Possibly.
Yeah.
So Armando, share where we can find your book. We'll definitely have to have you back because there's so much to discuss.
Yeah.
We have Jennie and Rachel in the catacombs over there.
Are we wrapping up with Armando?
Well, yeah, we're way over.
No, we're not over. No such thing as over.
Okay.
Jennie and Rachel coming up.
Yeah. So share with the viewers where we can connect to your book, The Hart Method. You have a copy of it here?
The Hart Method. This is my book.
And and
that's me on the cover.
And then
Beautiful.
on Amazon.
And that's at Howl, the place that we saw in the video.
Okay.
This is on Amazon,
Did you get a shot of that, Jacob? Did you get it?
The Heart Method,
Good.
at Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Yeah, this is my baby.
Well, listen, it's
Beautiful.
been.
Maybe I'll have a second baby.
Absolutely.
And not the physical baby, but
I think
the,
so.
I'm
I
talking
think
about
so.
a book.
Absolutely. I think you have it in you.
Send your friend out.
All right. So thank you so much for being here, Armando, sharing your wisdom and your inspiration. Really appreciate it. And why don't you tell us where we can find you on the World Wide Web?
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Thomas,
it
for having me here.
ArmandoHart.com?
ArmandoHart.com.
Okay.
Armando Hart. How do you spell
Armando, ARMANDOHART
H-A-R-T.
dot COM.
.co.
And I'm on Instagram, Armando_Hart. And I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook.
So if you're looking for a master coach, people, this is the guy. Read that book and
Yeah.
and call him up and get aligned with this guy if he's even available. I don't even know. He's working with guys like women like Misty May.
Yeah, I mean, I start by walking.
So perfect.
Walking is powerful.
Absolutely.
Next time we'll talk about walking.
That sounds
Absolutely.
good. And skipping.
And
Get
I
out
wanna
there.
skip.
Have that.
Thank you.
Roll our next. Do we have
Our
another
little
video?
dreamer. Otherwise, just leave the takes. Let's just do it organic in and out. The girls are going to come in. We're going to roll out. Thank you so much, Armando.
Hey, we have. Thank you so much, Armando. Peace.
All right. So we have Rachel and Jennie. Rachel Benish, Jennie on.
Hey.
How are you guys doing? Thank you for waiting so patiently.
Oh, no problem. It's worth the wait.
Yeah. So we're gonna get just slightly queued up. We are gonna talk about nonviolent communication today. But I would like to introduce Jennie is a wellness practitioner. She has a lot of modalities from yoga to Chinese medicine to Ayurveda,
A yogi and a
aromatherapy, all these
Walked
beautiful
into a bar.
things. And then we have our improv, Rachel, that is a crack up just to sit next to telepathically. I like sitting next to you because you're hilarious. You just got to start expressing that out in the world. And they came together and they're teaching people how to communicate better. And I think it's a really timely conversation because right now in the world we seem a little divided in how to communicate. And it seems like if you don't like what someone says, you don't want to talk to them. It's an interesting phenomena. So I think you guys will be able to shed some light on how we can bridge those gaps.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So quick lead-in question is, why don't each one of you answer what brings you joy? Since we're here on JoyScore.
Probably just take the lens off. It's not working.
I think connection and just that moment of peace and understanding and being seen really brings me joy, and celebration, being able to celebrate family and friends in one place brings me joy, definitely.
Beautiful.
How about comedy? Isn't that kind of offensive and abusive? I mean, comedy. If you make comedy, you have to like offend somebody, don't you? How does that work with nonviolent communication?
It's been a constant. No, it's been. I was really torn between the two because in comedy you have to be so honest and expressive, and then in nonviolent communication you're compassionate and you're almost.
Tell me about this. Compassion. Can you define that for our audience? Because our audience probably can use a refresher course on compassion. Like I'm talking about me, of course.
I mean, I think it's almost a little more spiritual, and it's a way to connect to other people in a more heart-based way.
So if you had to teach me how to be compassionate, what would you do? What would you say to me?
Take a breath.
What do you mean I am breathing?
And just understand that we're all sharing the same feelings. Kind of understand what your emotion you're going through right now. Maybe I'm feeling a little nervous or excited, and that's your way to connect with me. And then I'll just share my need to contribute and be seen is being met right now. So that's something that maybe you could also relate to.
So if you're compassionate, doesn't that?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you define it?
I think that compassion is a higher form of love.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I think that compassion, just like joy, is our natural state of being. And, with life and stress and, conditioning, social conditionings, cultural conditionings have kind of clouded that to some degree. And I think that's why people seek self-care and different healing modalities to kind of uncover those layers and get to the true essence of who we truly are, which is compassion and joy.
Wow. So you
Hers
kind
was better.
of use compassion. You kind of use compassion.
wins.
You kind of use compassion as a noun. But when you're compassionate, what does that allow you in relation to somebody else?
I think compassion helps me to kind of step in someone else's shoe and have a deeper sense of understanding or empathy for someone, which helps me to connect with that person, but also to connect with something within myself.
Which gives you what? What does that give you?
I think it's almost like a body sensation, a sense of peace, a sense of content.
So regardless of how upset I am, you're able to actually, if you have compassion for me, are able to maintain your space, right?
Yeah, I think so.
But doesn't it give you a type of insight into the person that you're dealing with as well, to help you direct them in the moment?
I would say so.
Yeah,
yes,
that's
yeah.
cool. So it's a powerful tool.
Would
you say everybody's compassionate, or is that something we have to learn?
I think that we're born with that innate, with that innate quality.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
How about those people that lose it? How do we get it back?
I think that like nonviolent communication is a powerful tool to coming to understanding what compassion truly is.
Cool.
And I think it's something that really has to be experienced. Like, it's not something that you can just kind of loosely kind of talk about, right?
Of course.
It's just like meditation.
But innately,
right?
you said we all have it.
Yes.
So why? What's the disconnect?
I think the disconnect, like I mentioned, was, like when we grow up, whatever societal conditionings or maybe from our family, things that we've learned, habits and patterns that kind of pull us away from that natural state of being. Just like being in nature, right?
So you're not connected the natural state of being to compassion.
And joy. So you brought up also our natural state of
those three.
I believe
joy.
Also.
Yeah, which is harmony. Would you say?
Yeah.
And I think it's so subconscious. Like, there's things we don't even think about that are constantly disconnecting us from other people. So one thing would be like comparing ourselves to others.
Right.
As soon as we start comparing, we're creating distance. Or when we label someone, even if we label someone Republican or Democrat, all of a sudden that label is creating disconnection, and we're losing that sense of our natural compassion for the other person, that humanness that we want to connect with. Once we put a label on it, it's really hard to connect with that.
So you're kind of like defining objective perspective, like I objectify you. You're a woman.
Once you've objectified me and labeled me, it's hard to really empathize with me, and I think that's why we're able to do harm to other people.
Non-violent communicator teacher, like already is a label, right?
So interesting.
So along with the label comes an expectation.
So I have a question for you guys, because we mutually know someone that's a nonviolent communicator, and I have a pretty strong telepathone muscle, which I don't reveal to a lot of people, but now I'm revealing it live.
It's revealed.
So what I've noticed with nonviolent communication, when you step into that role, if you're going to be really aware of your speech, and there's almost an interesting dynamic, because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't use that word. I can't use that word. So you can share a little bit for the viewers what nonviolent communication is, and also then how we can be compassionate with ourselves because of certain language may come out of our mouth. We might enjoy certain words that are tonal or offensive to others, but maybe not. So if you can share a little bit, I would love to hear.
You can share a little bit, then you can show us how to deal with it. We're the real asshole, a little jerk.
We call that the easy way out. That's, if you want to go there, that's the easy way. This type of communication takes work.
It's a muscle. You have to exercise it.
Yeah.
It's like learning a new language, essentially. So you have to keep practicing, and you have to be, like when we're teaching, we tell our students, put your MVC cap on. It's like coming into class with that NVC, that compassionate, that nonviolent communication, or compassionate consciousness, compassion.
NVC hat, nonviolent communications hat.
Put it on, everyone.
We'll get you a big one.
NVC.
I mean, when you think about the world that we're dealing with right now and the society that we live in, it's so far removed from compassion, I think. You know, not all societies, but especially some of the political things that we're going through. And, you know, I think that if we could embody that state of compassion more often, then we wouldn't be doing the harm that we are creating in the world.
So give us an example. We'll have Thomas here, and how you guide him to.
Hey, you bitches! What you
Well,
doing?
remember
over
we're
there?
on TV. I don't know if
Hey,
we're allowed to use language.
We
so
can use language. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We're good. I'm a program
How about
director here.
how about you give us a trigger phrase like
Something that's hard for you to hear.
Nice legs?
Oh,
Where'd
for
you get them
us.
legs? Oh, what do you mean? What's a trigger phrase? What is that?
A message that you hear that might be hard for you. So, you're dumb, or
Oh, you're dumb. You're stupid. That's my favorite. Stupid. What's wrong with you, stupid women? What are you talking about? What are you doing? What do you think you are over there? Trying
so
to
how
make us
if
nonviolent.
someone's talking to you that way, how would you respond to
I'm
them?
acting, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And then how would
I mean,
you?
there's two different modes. There's
I've never been a jerk in my life. Don't label me. Don't take this little clip out of context. It's connected to a big show.
Okay, well,
it
they're
just
gonna
goes
give
on
you some
repeat
tips
over and
that
over
maybe-
again. You're dumb. you yeah, there's two different modes. One is, do you need to protect yourself in this moment? Do you need to remove yourself from
Do
the
I need
situation?
to, or do you need to?
I? So I'm talking to myself
Oh,
right
gotcha.
now. So
Okay.
do I need to remove myself? Is this a threat going on? Or is this someone that I could actually engage with and maybe give empathy or understanding of what's going on? I mean, I had someone tell me that women aren't funny. Just straight up. That
Yeah, women
aren't funny. And I got really, that I got triggered immediately. But then there was curiosity. And then it was, wondering why and seeing if I could just listen and hear him out a little bit and see what's going on. So, yeah, I think I just asked him questions.
All right, we'll deal with me and your stupid brown hair. Who did your hair today? Never heard
Well,
of
I just
makeup?
want to mention that I think curiosity is an important aspect of compassion.
Oh, interesting.
Just being open to what the situation is presenting itself, right? So because I think the tendency when we're presented with conflict or a trigger, we kind of like go to default mode, right?
Reflect it. Reflect the energy coming at you, right?
Right. I can either fight back, we can freeze, or we can start to kind of run away from the situation, right?
I think philosophically you're dealing with a huge issue, and philosophically speaking, I understand from a place of transformation of negative emotions. So being able to transform negative emotions actually jolts us into a higher emotional state, which allows us to become present and then go into this state that you call compassion or having empathy for somebody. So actually being able to transform the negative entity, use that as a catalyst to your own enlightenment. Almost like that, so you're benefiting from is that sort of where we're going?
Yeah, I mean, we use emotion almost like you would see the dashboard emergency lights coming up. So when there's what we would say a negative emotion, those are the lights where you say stop, and I'm getting curious about what's underneath. So
what does that allow you to do?
It allows you to understand that the emotion is just temporary, and then try to understand what the deeper need is going on underneath the feeling.
For self and the one you're communicating with. So if we have Thomas being rowdy over here and using expletives,
I mean,
then you might feel what for Thomas?
Yeah.
Would you walk us through that? Someone's getting surly. What would you do?
To me, I wouldn't even necessarily say this out loud, but like Jenny said, it's more of a consciousness. I would understand, he's just trying to connect with me. This is his way of just wanting to play and have fun and connect. So I'm not judging what you're saying, but I'm really trying to understand what's underneath what you just said. And if that's your way of connecting with me, and I can see that it's not coming from an aggressive place, then I can have more understanding and understand that you're just wanting human connection and play.
Right. So that's your. How would you handle it? I have a feeling.
Well, I think I love what you said, because that comes back to curiosity.
Yeah.
It's like being open to like, hey, even though this guy is being aggressive, I'm not making a judgment about you. I'm not jumping to like, oh my God, what an asshole. I've dealt with guys like this. Then it's going to create that division, right? It's like, I don't want to even talk to this guy. But it's that curiosity that kind of opens that door to like, okay, what's going on? Maybe he's wanting to connect, or maybe he's not feeling heard. Or maybe he's needing to be seen, and this is his way of expressing that. And that allows you to have compassion and understanding for you.
Oh, gotcha.
Does that make sense?
So, like,
And I think that's transformative in itself, to even go through that process.
So somebody says, okay, well, come on, let's go out on a date. What's wrong with you? Here's my number. What do you want? Do you want to take my number? What's wrong? Hey.
Yeah, I would take a couple breaths, because I'd
kinda-
want to get a little reactive.
You're hot. Come on now. Nice dress, everything.
I
What's your
really,
number?
yeah, I would, like when you say that I'm hot and
Come on, what?
you're interested in me, I'm
What, you're
really
not hot?
flattered.
You don't think you're hot?
Well, I'm really flattered, but I'm not really interested right now.
You're not. Oh man,
Yeah.
it hurts me deep. I mean, that's crushing me over here. All right, you're just
Yeah,
you're just a
I see
bitch
that
anyways. You're a
I
bitch
see that you're
anyways.
wanting to connect and you're searching for intimacy. Is that something that
Oh my God,
resonates?
I feel like you just saw through me. I'm leaving.
This got too
So-
real.
Not too
I'm
real.
out of here.
Yep, she shot me down. That's non-violent. That was just a
So how would you recommend?
massive shaming experience.
Oh. Well, how would you recommend to like? Then you say, "Oh, I'm not interested," but how would you? Because people will completely get scared in those moments, so
Yeah.
they can run away, or they can be like, "Dude, you're cool. Let's just hang out and be friends."
Right.
And it doesn't mean you have to end all conversation.
Right.
Because it's so vulnerable to put yourself out
Right.
there. Even if it's in a aggressive way, you're still being vulnerable.
How about if you guys are being the aggressor in terms of looking, or you're walking into a situation that you know is violent, and you're there to actually quell it? I mean, what is it? What's that process about?
so
like if
it's
you're going into you're going to war, and I'm gonna go bring some light into this place. How would you go about doing that?
I think it's important to really empathize with the other person. Because
or group of people.
or a group
With
of
both
people.
sides, yeah.
Yeah, because if you just go into a situation and you exert, well, I'm feeling like this and I'm going like this, they're not going to hear you. But if you can connect with them first and be able to empathize with them, there's an internal shift that will occur. Once someone feels heard, once someone feels seen, once someone feels like they've been empathized with, then they start to open up, right? It's like this opening, and then there's like this invitation where, oh, okay, now I kind of want to share because I'm being heard. But if you already feel like you're not being heard, and then I come in and I just start interjecting all my wants and desires, it may not be received
All right,
well.
so
Does that make sense?
There's a clan meeting on the corner, and you know about it, and you have your nonviolent communication
I'm
skills.
going to go undercover
Yeah.
as a clan
and
member.
and you know what you're walking into, and you know they're getting ready to lynch somebody up. And so, how do you go in there and diffuse that situation?
I mean, that sounds like a violent situation, and I would probably call.
Well, it's a
the
nonviolent
authorities.
communication.
Well, I think-
it's violent.
I think you could speak to the curiosity, because I've been in situations where, when I was a teen, where there was a fight, and I threw myself in the middle of it just to stop it, because I was like, this should not be going down, little me in front of a fight. So how could you use curiosity in such a contentious situation as
Jacob, make sure there's enough light on us.
a clan meeting?
It's a bit tricky with one of those because it has so much to do with beliefs rather than.
They're too dark in my camera.
So, like Jenny was talking about, so many people just want to express and be heard. And there's a lot of softness that comes in once someone feels fully heard. So even just creating space and allowing someone to fully express themselves and know that they've been heard in a non-judgmental way, that is very powerful in itself.
Well, if we're talking about discrimination, like fear of a race, right? So the root of all of that is fear. They're afraid. And so could we use a question like, okay, what's the worst that could happen here? That's always my question to people. Like, what's our worst case scenario? Like, let's talk about it. Like, and does this solution that you found really get you to where you need to be.
Sometimes people don't realize what's going on underneath. So if I can start what this whole process is you're trying to listen for what that is. So
Right.
to me, a lot of what's going on is the fear of their security being taken away.
Right.
Or safety. Safety is a huge one. And that comes out in a lot of different behaviors, whether it's discrimination or trying to block out people from coming into
Right.
country or home or whichever. So it's really understanding that we all have this shared human need for safety and security,
Yeah.
but we're all choosing different methods to express that.
So maybe even in one of the situations, we could ask, what do you need? Right? What do you need right now?
What would meet your need for safety?
Yeah.
And some people, their only strategy is, not let people in. Like that's their only strategy.
Right.
So if we can come up and say, hey, we all have this need for security, we all have this need for safety, let's think of some strategies that work for all of us so we can all feel safe, so we
Right.
can all feel secure.
So opening up a dialogue.
And creating a win-win situation for both parties involved versus I think a lot of times with conflict it's like power over. How can I, which is like all ego-centered, right? Like,
Yeah.
no, I have to win this fight. I have to
Right.
be the one in control. And it's like with compassionate communication, it's about how can we meet both of our needs in a way that feels good for both of us.
And how can we guide with our conversation, our words written or spoken, to bring people back into that neutral place, especially like you used the example, you were ignited a little about when some man said your women aren't funny. How could you bring these tools in to help bridge that, to soften?
I find that with nonviolent communication or compassionate communication, it's a mindfulness technology. So it's all about coming back to that present state of awareness. And the first step, there's actually a formulaic method of going through the steps of nonviolent communication. And the first step is observation. And, like just similar with meditation, how do we stay in this objective state, almost like we're standing outside of our body looking in as a witness, right? So how do we do that?
Right.
And I think that's the first step. First, taking a breath, checking in with yourself, and then assessing, but from an objective place versus the stories and the judgments and all of those things that can create that separation and division.
Are we assuming that if we're practicing nonviolent communication, that the person practicing is violent? So you guys must have been violent at some point. Natural inclination to be violent? Was that your beginning of your study, or was that a question you
Yeah,
had
what
for yourself?
inspired you guys?
Like where you find yourself punching people and then realizing, wow, this is not happening, or
For me, I think that I grew up in a home and culture where there wasn't a lot of communication. And I came to this realization that I wasn't articulating myself in the way that I truly wanted to. And I thought that it was actually a language barrier because I grew up bilingual. So I thought, maybe I didn't learn English properly because, of my background. And then I came to realize, oh my God, I'm just really disconnected from my feelings and needs. I don't even know I don't even know what I'm feeling right now. So how do I know how to empathize with someone else? And that was really a big revelation for me.
So how old were you when that happened?
Well, I started my spiritual journey around the age of 15, so that was like 16 years ago.
Wow.
But it's been a process, right?
So at 15, you had that major.
I had,
You were a mean girl.
Well, I wasn't a mean girl, but I think that I just didn't know how to express myself fully. And I've always been on that search of how do I express myself in a way that feels authentic. And with nonviolent communication, I find that I have tools now to articulate myself and express myself.
So when was the first tool? So you go, okay, I realize I need to work and find some answers. What was the first tools that got you on the right path?
For me, it was yoga.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
What kind of
the
yoga
yogic-
did you teach?
Well, I've taught all types of yoga. Right now, I teach mainly to seniors, age 65 plus, and I find so much joy doing that. I love my community, and I feel so much gratitude that I'm able to teach to them.
Are you teaching them in the chair? Are you
No,
using
they're
the chair?
very active.
Oh, cool.
No, they're
Great.
super active.
They're more
and-
flexible than I am.
Yeah, but the
Love it.
yogic path was what kind of led me into these different healing modalities.
So you must have had a good teacher that was teaching you that yoga.
It was actually a yoga teacher that studied nonviolent communication, and the way that
What was her name?
her name was Judith Lazater,
Uh-huh.
and the way that she would, she'd be speaking to like 100, 200 people, but it almost seemed like she was speaking to you directly. right? It just like she was connecting with everybody in the way that she was speaking, and I really thought that was beautiful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So then the light went off, and then
Yeah, and then I started searching and taking trainings and reading more about it and applying some of these principles into my own life.
So that was the first one. What was the first principle? What was it?
Observation,
Observation. What's the next one?
feelings,
Feelings, and then
connecting to your feelings and the feelings of others.
that's sort of the compassion lesson we talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
A little bit the feelings aspects, and then what's the third one?
Is your needs or your values or the needs or values of others.
So how do you define that?
So
And defining it between need and want, because I'm not completely.
Yeah, I would say needs are more linked to your values, and knowing that everyone has human universal needs, and it could be on a basic survival place of food, shelter, that's all.
What do you-
Air,
are you,
water.
Are you applying that
Water,
to
air.
yourself? Your own
Well,
needs, like my own needs?
so
My own needs, right?
I loved what I was listening to Armando speaking, and he was talking about how do you choose to show up every day? You either choose to respond or you choose to react, right? And with nonviolent communication, you're choosing to show up in a way where you can be more responsive. And in that state, you're able to. Sorry, what was the question one more time?
No, just in terms of needs, like you referencing
Oh, right. And
needs.
so when you're responding, you're choosing to respond and empathize with your values or needs, or you're choosing to respond and empathize by connecting with someone else's needs or values.
Or
And I-
somewhere in between.
So how do you
potential.
define needs
Yeah.
and values for somebody else?
Yeah, it's more so a list. So it could be, and it helps if you see kind of like the categories of autonomy, celebration, mourning.
Autonomy. What in terms of
Autonomy is your
is that a
need
need for
to-
me? My need to do something?
Yeah,
To be an individual?
Yeah.
a need
Okay.
to do things how you like in the way that you want to do them. That's your need for autonomy. So these are a need for respect, a need for compassion, a need for contribution. These are all.
Isn't that a little codependent? Well, if I'm expecting somebody else to give me those things, I should be getting myself.
We use the word interdependence. So
Interdependent.
we acknowledge that everyone has these
So if
needs.
I expect you to fulfill a need for me, that's not really cool, is it?
Well, it's understanding that that's just one strategy to get that need met, but there's thousands of ways that you could get your need for love met. And maybe you've made a choice that you're only going to be getting your need for intimacy met with certain people. But in a sense, we can get our need for intimacy met in many different ways. It's not just one
Through
strategy.
nature, through yourself.
And I like using the word value because need implies that you have to meet this thing for me. And that might not always be the case.
And you
Or-
mean like I value,
I value friendship.
right.
I value a shared reality in this relationship.
So what's interesting is the valuation has to do with you, and the needs have to do with somebody else's. Sounds like that would be applicably
That we both have certain needs that need
like
to
I have the valuation, right, and I'm able to observe the needs of others. Because if I flip it around, it becomes one big codependent mess, right? Because then I'm expecting the world to provide for me as opposed to me perceiving it as I need to, right? So valuation here, being able, then which gives me the ability to perceive the needs of others in a particular way based on my values.
And Jenny, maybe you could speak a little bit to choice, because when we go into yoga or we go into certain practices, a Zen practice, you start to retire the senses and you go into more of a selfless state of being. So those needs or the things you value get less and less. Like you're just like, oh, I don't, there's just not as many. It's just natural part of the system. So if you can talk a little bit about those choices, like, oh, do I choose in this moment, hey, Thomas wants a cup of coffee. I'm choosing to give him a cup of coffee even though I have to leave. Could you share a little bit about that and what the value is in that process within nonviolent communication?
Okay, I'm not understanding the question completely.
Well,
then go to something where within the dynamic of a relationship that might be coming on borderline abusive.
Yeah, where
Like,
you're
how would
noticing your
you-
own boundaries and
Or maybe you're noticing your own boundaries. Like how would you navigate that space in the dynamic of an intimate relationship, especially if you live with somebody or married to somebody?
Yeah, I mean that really touches on being able to communicate. What is my bandwidth right now? How much do I have to offer you? If I am recognizing that you're needing food or you're needing more intimacy or touch right now, but I'm needing space, then that would be a conflict of needs. And remember, we're trying to get to this win-win situation. So that's where you would want to communicate what's going on with you. So you could say, okay, I'm noticing that you're really needing more touch and intimacy right now, but I've just had a really long day, a really long week, and I really need time to recharge and I need space. So, is there any way that, then we try to find strategies that could find a solution with each other. But the first thing you want to do is acknowledge kind of what's going on with both people.
If two people could actually be honest with each other, right? So
that's the first thing. That's what we teach is, honesty. And really what I think that this process helps is with courage. Because before I learned this 4-step process of talking about my feelings and talking about my needs, it's scary to share about what's going on inside, and it's scary to ask someone for something. There's the fear of loss, there's the fear of rejection. So kind of having this tool to fall back on really just gives me more courage to be honest in relationships. And I think that's overall, it's the courage to speak openly and honestly without the fear that you're going to lose that person.
Oh, gotcha. So do you define a difference between honesty and truth, or?
They're the same, but I think in general, you have to have a layer of kindness and generosity with whatever you're sharing, and awareness. You're using your intellect, like what's appropriate in the situation, what's not.
And I think honesty requires a little bit of vulnerability too, and that's scary for people.
Is fear an excuse not to take care of yourself, or?
I think it can be for people, yeah, or it can be a motivator for people.
How do you? I mean, that's probably typically your main obstacle in relation to your clients, and is that? I mean, is there any addressing the fear that they have, letting them know that it's all figment of your imagination? You have to create that, or is it something that you kind of go, oh, this is where we empathize with you, and we understand that you're scared, which is more of a sympathizing, by the way, which.
There's a difference between sympathy and empathy.
Yeah, there is. So sympathizing doesn't seem to be a very constructive tool relative to empathy, of course. Right?
Well, sympathy is where you're feeling the emotion with the person. Empathy is where you're allowing that person to have that emotion and you're just holding space for them. So you don't actually have to take that emotion on yourself. And I think that's something that for me, that was the most profound of this practice, is in intimate relationships with my mom, with my sister, that when they shared with me and unloaded and dumped and needed to vent, that I didn't feel like I needed to fix or to help them or solve their problem, or I didn't even have to take it on emotionally. All I had to do was hold space and allow them to be heard, because that's all. I didn't realize that's all they really wanted. They didn't even need me to help them. Because before I learned this tool, I just wanted to help and help and help, and I gave and gave and gave until I overgave and became resentful. So this practice has helped me come back to myself, so that when I am holding space, I'm actually really aware now. If I'm resentful afterwards, that means I gave too much, and it's helpful for them, for me just to be there and listen. And knowing that that's actually just as important as anything else.
That's really beautiful. That's a nice share. But even in your explanation of it, you seem very vulnerable. Life is not always so user friendly, and so it's kind of like if you're walking around like a vulnerable open wound, and you absolutely have to face life, it could be a very traumatic situation. You know what I mean? Is there a way to
self-care?
Is there a way to manage the sledgehammer of life, because it's not always so user friendly?
I think
is that what this is? Sort of that tool. Like we know that life is not so friendly, and so what I'm going to try to do is keep it on par with the ability to take action within it or manage it or something? I mean, is there some overall arching umbrella here that we can kind of put this under for our audience? Because this is exactly what our audience is craving. They're craving a sense of how to be proactive but not get crushed. Seems like somebody's saying something based on our own expectations and requirements that's not lining up with what we think is right or good or wrong or right or wrong or whatever. It's not lining up with what we feel, and then every time something doesn't line up with what we feel, we get knocked out of whack. So you have a whole bunch of people walking around because the world is not the way that they think it should be.
I think it's a lot of those expectations that we have and the judgments that we create or the comparisons, especially with social media. It's like, oh my God, I'm not as successful or whatever as that person, and then it kind of takes you out of yourself. And I think with this modality, it's really about how can we come back to that present state of awareness.
Come back to ourselves.
Yeah, how do we come back to ourselves? And I think I was mentioning self-care because I think it's the self-care practices that we do every day that ensures that it's almost like a health insurance, right? So that when we're going about the world, we're not so easily affected by the stressors or things in life, but also having this, this consciousness of NVC is what we call it, putting that cap on so that, when there is a situation, you're able to stay in that objective state, but also present to what's happening. It's not about pushing your emotions away or trying to push someone else's emotions away, but becoming present to it and acknowledging. And that is powerful in itself. Just even like, when you're feeling uncomfortable, you don't know you feel uncomfortable, but then when you can actually, oh yeah, I'm actually feeling really anxious right now. And sometimes just vocalizing that creates a little bit of lightness or levity to the situation.
That's beautiful. Well, beautifully said, right? Isn't that awesome?
And I think it goes back we'll make it full circle to what Armando was saying about the choice between reacting and responding. So this is a great tool. I heard that you guys are planning on a non-violent communication 30-day challenge in the near future. Is that true? Potentially?
Yes.
Okay. Probably this fall, and we're planning like a weekend workshop sometime in the fall.
In Los Angeles,
All right. And then if you can share with us, because we're going to have to exit out rather shortly, if you can share with us your websites where we can find our comedian and our wellness. So you can go for Joy at Rachel and Jennie. We can do our self-care with you.
Yeah.
Probably best is Instagram, Rachel Benish. I do have a website, rachelbenish.com as well. RACHEL, B as in boy, ENNISH.com.
And mine is Jennie on Wellness, JENNYAHN, Wellness, WELLNESS.com. And you can find me on Instagram at Jennie on Wellness.
Good. So if you could think 5 seconds or less, what this audience might need to hear from you guys. Do you have a word of encouragement for them? Do you have like something that they can take with them as you guys exit off into the sunset there?
Yeah, I think be honest with yourself, and whatever emotion is there, let yourself feel it. Let yourself fully experience what that is so you can move through it and come back into communication first and foremost with yourself before you communicate with others.
That's beautiful. How about you, Jennie?
I think tuning in with your breath. I think your breath really is signaling so much about what's going on in your mental state, your emotional state, and your physical state. And when you find yourself kind of holding your breath, or suddenly the breath is speeding up, or just the breath becomes erratic, then that's a moment to kind of push that imaginary pause button that's there and allow yourself to just tune in with yourself, check in, see what's going on, and be open and curious to what your body, what your emotions are telling you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Very well. Listen, thank you so much for coming. It was just we could have you talk to you for hours. This is really awesome.
You can do some scene study, and we can act out nonviolent communication with our theater performance teacher over here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so
Really
much.
pleasure.
Thank
Really
you.
pleasure.
Sorry I wasn't funnier.
You're
It's a serious subject.
You're hilarious. I'm telling you, girl. Just let all those thoughts out of your brain into the
Get that
world.
camera over here. Let me close this out here, and then you can roll to the last video. Well, this has been JoyScore.co, and we had a wonderful evening, and thank you to Suzanne Toro for her exceptional professional perceptions of things, and to Rachel, and to Jen, and to Armando for coming in and sharing their words of wisdom. Thanks again. Have a wonderful evening.
What more does everyone need but just a Russian friend that lives in Japan?
Oh, right. Elizabeth, thank you for
And,
picking up the ball for me. I dropped it.
She is an amazing gift to the world. I hope you enjoy this piece, and if you get a chance, check her out at elizaveta.net. And don't forget to come back to joyscore.co. And if we don't have sound, we'll do a silent exploration of outer space and planet
No
Earth.
sound?
Commentary.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Enjoy the visuals.
Enjoy the visuals. They're breathtaking in itself. You can check her out, elizaveta.net. Thank you guys so much. Until next time.